Hello viewers, thank you so much for the confidence you have invested in us on GTV. Your presence behind your TV sets is much appreciated, and we had to take a break to allow for other equally important national assignments, or for that matter exercises, to take our space. But we are back, thanks to the Almighty God. We are back to continue with your program, your favorite program, Single Spine, The Issues. A couple of concerns have been raised in connection with pay rise, allowances, market premium payment, salary discrepancies, and the need for Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to address those concerns. I know these are issues on your mind and you would want them addressed as quickly as possible. But we are here on this very platform to look at productivity, linking pay and productivity, and we will tie this to performance management. I'm grateful to have with me on this platform Mr. Aaron K. Vuha is the head of Industrial Engineering, MDPI, and Dr. William Boateng of the Economics Department, University of Ghana, Legon. They have joined us in the studio, and we will be talking to them. You would also agree with us that many well-meaning persons, including His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, have raised concerns about the need to link pay to productivity in the Ghanaian public services. In recent times, or in his recent State of the Nation address, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama revealed that we are now spending a staggering about 70% of our entire national revenue to pay public sector salaries. And so this has resulted in the wage bill increasing from about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis to about 8 billion Ghana cedis in the last 3 years. To this end, President concluded by saying that the people of Ghana demand better service from our public sector employees, commensurate to the investment made in their remuneration. With the near migration of all public sector workers onto the single spine salary structure, the way is all set for the rollout to the next step of the single spine, which is linking pay to performance. And so this episode will discuss performance management and how we can link pay to productivity in the public service as required by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the act that set them up, Act 737. And so my guests have taken their seat and we will be talking about this issue. I have with me, to my immediate left, Mr. Aaron K. Vuha is the head of Industrial Engineering, MDPI, and also with us here is Dr. William Boateng of the Economics Department, University of Ghana, Legon. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
We can roll here. Now, performance management is a current buzzword. I mean, the need for us in current times, especially when we found ourselves in competition like this for organizations battling for leadership and all that. And so somebody will ask that, what are the ingredients that make up performance management? And then if we are able to develop this, we will try as much as possible to see how best we can link pay to productivity. Let me first start with you, Dr. William Boateng of the Economics Department. What are the ingredients that make up performance management?
Thank you very much. I mean, you are looking at performance management from the perspective of the worker.
Yeah.
Of course, if you engage somebody to do a particular job or carry out a particular task for you, you need to rule out or outline what you expect the person to do, and be able to monitor whether that person has been able to do what you want. So performance management requires that if you engage a person, you put in place all the ingredients, all the tools that will allow the person to work. And then we'll also charge the person to know what he's supposed to do, and therefore have a way of monitoring whether he has been able to do what you expect him to do, and based on that, you reward the person accordingly.
Okay. I also know that this is a much broader and a complicated function of HR, and so if we will have to look at it critically, we will be asking ourselves whether this is achievable in the public service.
Well, I think your question, I would have loved that. I mean, you link it straight away to productivity, because performance management is more linked to productivity. And I think we should understand that public service is not a homogeneous enterprise. It's heterogeneous. The public service is quite big. You have the police, you have the teachers, you have the health service, you have the civil service, and so on. And therefore, in trying to monitor performance of all these people, you cannot use just one particular indicator, and that makes it quite complex. So when the first answer that I gave myself is that it is not that it cannot be achieved, but it is a very difficult task.
And so the point is that, is this likely to work in the public service, looking at the bureaucracies which we have lived with all these years?
I think as we go on with the discussion, some issues may come up. If you want to do that, then there are certain things that we need to put in place. Some legislation may even come into force before you can do that. Yeah.
Okay, now, Aaron, how do we apply this then to the public service or to the public sector?
Okay, like he has already said, when somebody is employed, he is given a position. He should be told exactly what is expected of him. Then somebody should be there to monitor what he is doing, measure what his output is compared to what is expected, and see if there's any shortfall. And I think it can be done. It should be done. I think it's not being done just because the will to do it has not been there. So because you don't employ anybody unless you know what you want him to come and do and tell him exactly what to do.
I see. I'm happy you talked about output, input, measurement. And so a quick one there will be to find out whether it's a difficult thing to measure. I mean, in terms of doing your analysis, output, input analysis within the public service. Let me throw this one to you, Doc.
Well, I think I said that it can be done. And as I said, there are so many units or so many agencies or departments, or as I said, public service is heterogeneous. So you cannot use the same measure of output for me as a teacher for a policeman. So you can measure it, and it's not something that it cannot be done. You can measure it, and you need to monitor it. If I take you back,
so it's not an issue of being a rocket science.
No, I would take back to education. I mean, when I was a young boy with my father, who was a teacher, head teacher, those times I remember head teachers go to the district office to collect monies every month and pay the teachers. And I remember those times we have the supervisor, circuit supervisor, who comes around to make sure that all teachers have their lesson notes, and the head teacher also makes sure that the teachers do the. So because they were able to do that, it's more like a decentralized kind of. It would have been very easy to do that, because the head teacher is the one who is supervising and monitoring your performance, and if you don't do it, you will not be paid. So at that time, we were able to do it. And of course, I think you can do it depending on your commitment and the government commitment to be able to achieve that. And I don't think you can pay somebody without looking at what the person is doing.
So the point here is that there are a couple of issues that should be taken into consideration. For instance, joint goal setting, if I get you right from what you're saying.
Yes.
That it must be a commitment on the part of the employer and a commitment on the part of the employee. So then there's a joint goal setting, how to meet objectives set out by the organization. Issues of continuous progress would also come in.
Exactly.
Issues of reviewing frequent communication processing will come in. Coaching, mentoring, and all that.
Exactly.
My real worry here is the targets set and how these are achieved.
Targets
set by the employer and how these are achieved, and what measures or mechanisms are put in place to make sure that all these indicators that I have mentioned are achieved.
Yeah, anytime a target, okay, before you set a target, you must know what you want to do. let's say you want to get from here to Tamale in 10 days.
Yeah.
Are you with me? So you know what you want to do. Then you must establish how you want to do it. And those who are involved in doing it, everybody should know the part he is expected to play. There should be standards as to what everybody does. And these standards must be monitored.
Yeah.
If everybody plays his part as is expected of him, the way he should, we will all achieve the same
I
goal.
want us to make this very practical so our viewers will appreciate what we are doing.
Okay.
Standards must be set.
Yeah.
Standards should be monitored.
Yeah.
Standards should be measured. What specific standards are we talking about so that if you can relate this practically to the real world situation or real life situation within the public service, I'm sure our viewers and listeners will appreciate what we're doing. Let me throw this one.
I think I will pick it up from my perspective as
Okay.
a teacher.
A teacher.
If you want to measure my performance,
Yeah.
how do you do it? As a university teacher, when I got my appointment letter, there were two clear things that I remember I saw. I'm supposed to teach.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do research.
But that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, I'm supposed to teach, I'm supposed to do research, and I'm also supposed to do extension like what I'm doing
Exactly.
here. And to teach, what are you supposed to teach?
Exactly.
The head of the department is responsible for the activity that you are supposed to do. So if it's time for me to go to class, I make sure I go to class. It's time for me to publish, I make sure I publish. At the end of every year, I have to fill a form to show how many papers I have, how many classes I've been able to teach. The students will also assess me to find out whether I came to class, I came on time, did I give them the course outline
you're
or the
able to
course
manage the
syllabus.
content that you're
Everything
supposed to, yeah.
must be there. It means that you can go and analyze this and find out whether I was able to do what was expected of me. But before then, the employer must also put in place all the tools. This is very important, because if you ask me to go to the classroom and you don't provide me with a marker or a chalk, it means that I will not be able to do my work. If you want me to be in the office and you don't give me a chair, I cannot perform my duty. So you can set the target because you know what the worker, what you expect the worker to do. So you provide all the ingredients, then you set the target, and the target must be achievable.
Yeah.
You can't set a target which scientifically cannot be achieved. And the worker will also be told what he's supposed to do, and all the tools have been given to the worker. And therefore you analyze it based on what the target that you've set, and then you can monitor.
I'm happy you talk about the tools, or you've spoken about the tools. In situations where employers have failed to make available these logistics, or for that matter, the tools, definitely you don't expect to achieve anything. And this is where people have gotten away with.
Yes, of course. I mean, and in measuring my performance and let's say filling a questionnaire, there should be a column that is also going to show the constraints that I faced in the course of discharging my duties.
Yeah.
And that will also show whether all the material that I needed to work with were there. So we need to look at it in a holistic manner. The employer cannot renege in his or her effort and say that you have to do this without providing me with the tools and equipment to be able to do that. And at the end of the day, come out to tell me that I could not do what you asked me to do. And the worker cannot also go to work when everything has been provided and say that I have not been able to do it. So it's both the responsibility of the employer and the worker, and all the targets, the standards, and everything must be set not in isolation, but it must be set within the rules and what that particular enterprise wants to achieve.
Now, if we take a critical look at the public sector again, can we say that there's current systems and structures in place is something which can lend itself to effective performance management? Let me come to you.
Personally, I
Yeah.
think so. You see, I'm seeing it in the light of this. Anytime an organization is set up,
Yeah.
it is set up because there's a need for that organization. And the things that need to be done within that organization to achieve to supply the need
Yeah.
are laid out. And I believe that once an enterprise has been set up, there is an organization structure and people fill various positions. Each person should have a clear-cut job description.
Yes.
This should be made known to him when he's employed.
Yeah.
And then he's expected to do the things so listed. I believe these things exist. I just think that they are not being monitored and enforced. So I even think
whose
that
responsibility is that? I mean, when you talk about monitoring,
there is an overall supervisor.
which is?
Let's say the government sets up Ghana Water and Sewage, whatever it is.
Exactly.
He is to supervise the head of that organization. And that head is also to supervise his subordinates all the way down. So if everyone is to play his part, his direct supervisor is to make sure he does his bit. And somebody says, you can only expect what you inspect. If you don't inspect, people can get away with what they are doing. If I'm employed to do a certain job, somebody should make sure I do it. Otherwise, I should be sanctioned.
I am asking all this because if we monitor the current trend, there's a possibility that we are rolling out into the next stage as far as fair wages and salaries commission is concerned, with their mandate and all that, making sure that we link pay to productivity, and the fact that we have the Public Services Commission, and so when it comes to monitoring, and how do we make sure that, I mean, who becomes responsible to?
Well, if I have to come in, I think before I answer your question, I think my colleague hit the nail right on the head about supervision, because there was a chain of supervision from the last person at the lower echelon of the ladder and the government. Here we are talking about the public service. If you go to, let's say, the civil service, you go to a ministry, we have the chief director. Chief director is the overall boss, so he is the overall supervisor. And of course, under him or her, we also have directors. And under every director, we also have other officers and so on. So everybody has a responsibility. And if you are a supervisor and you know the work that your subordinates are supposed to do and you are not able to supervise, then it also becomes part of failure of your work. So that supervision is very important. But coming back to the structures that we have, I have interacted and worked with the public service. I'm in the public service, and I've also worked with the civil service. The first thing that comes into mind is that when the civil service was set up, I stand for correction, I'm sure it started from colonial days. And when we gained our independence, all these structures were put in place. I don't know whether
over the years
we've sat down to look at
review
changes that have come up, and therefore a review. I will give just one example, and sometimes I think that the chief directors are unable to be able to, let's say they are constrained to some extent. For instance, it is the head of civil service who is responsible for employing civil servants. And therefore they employ, and then they are brought to the ministry. I don't know whether the chief directors have a hand in who is employed and so on and so forth. In the course of, let's say, doing your work, what are some of the things that, or what are some of the difficulties, constraints that you face? And if somebody does not do his work, what are the sanctions? So these are the things that, for me, we need to look at and say, if you are going to put in place a way of monitoring productivity in the public service, we have to take a second look at the recruitment and see if we can do some kind of review in line with the current trend.
So the point is selecting the right set of people in the first place, and what measures you put in place in implementing an effective selection process. This is what you're talking about, if I get you right.
Yes.
Because in situations where barrier to entry has been very low, you find all kinds of people getting on board, and that's when mediocrity sets in, and then performance goes down. All right. This certainly is something that can cut across the public service. And how do we work on this now so that we can improve on what we have?
How do we work on what?
I mean, the kind of system we have where the barrier to entry has already been lowered, and you'll find all kinds of people in. Obviously, they will not measure up to that expectation in terms of performance if all these measures we have talked about is implemented or implementation begins. you know, for them. Do we get those ones out?
We just
and
have
we
to
say
do
that
the right thing.
yes,
there's a job to be done.
Yes.
The one employed to do the job, is he qualified?
Yes.
If he is not qualified.
But the point is, we have quite a number of them who are not qualified already in the system, and we want to link pay to productivity. And these are people who are already not working.
If he is not qualified,
yes,
is he trainable?
Yes.
If he cannot be trained, I'm sorry, he has to be redeployed because he will just be draining everything. He will be pulling everybody backwards. And since we are linking everything to productivity,
yes,
the first step towards improving productivity is to make sure that everybody is qualified for the job he's supposed to do. Otherwise, you can't make any headway.
But I'm telling you that we have a situation where we have quite a number of them who are not qualified. They have entered the system because somebody is related to somebody. Somebody is uncle is in charge of recruitment. And so we have found all these people, you know, in public service, and they are running down the show.
Then you can't get what you expect.
Exactly. So I'm asking that now that we are coming in to set up these measures, how would they cope, or what do we do to them? You have talked about the fact that if they are trainable, then we should train them. What if they are not trainable?
Redeploy.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I don't have any evidence to show that somebody had been employed, and because it's related to another person, I don't have that evidence. And I'm sure, I don't think in the public service somebody will be employed to become, let's say, assistant director in the ministries when the person doesn't have the minimum qualification. I think that is something that I don't know it will happen. So I don't have evidence to that effect. But coming back to your question, depending on what the government wants to do, this is what I want to do, because you've asked for higher wage. There was a single spine, and the single spine relates wages or salaries to productivity. So I am going to pay you every month, and this is what that particular amount of money I'm going to pay you is wealth. And therefore, I want you to do 1, 2, 3 every day. And at the end of the month, this is how I am going to evaluate you. And then you are going to be paid on that basis. So we should be thinking about how we can monitor that. And also, if we are linking salaries to productivity, then we have to ask ourselves, if the person is not able to measure up to the standard that you set for the person, how are you also going to look at the salary or the wage that the person is going to get? Are you going to say that I'm not going to pay you at the end of the month, or if you fail in this, I'm going to reduce it by 5%? And that is something that must be put in place. And going forward too, we don't have to look at Fair Wages and Salaries Commission as the only institution that should be given that responsibility. I mean, I look at trying to come up with productivity in the public service to be a very huge task. So we need
very torturous one.
We need to look into it quite carefully. We need to conduct some kind of research into it, come up with the measurable indicators to be able to do that. Otherwise, at the end of the day, we will not be able to get what we want.
I am happy you talked about the measurable indicators. We will go for a break. When we come back, we will delve into that. But this break will highlight what people think about performance management. And so Gladys of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission went to town to find out what people think about performance management. Gladys, over to you.
Thank you, Cecil. As usual, we are out on the streets and asking people what they think about public servants and their attitude to work.
In the public industries or companies, there's poor supervision, low production. Most of the workers there, they don't have good relations with each other. They do the work out of their own interest.
I think the public servants, at times, you know, it depends. It depends on their attitude towards work, because maybe at times when you get into the office, you might see people reading newspapers, people, you know, doing other things except doing the main work that they are supposed to do.
I've noticed that the workers in government institutions are usually old people, so I will advise that we get younger people who will be able to do their work well and effectively.
I once attended a public health facility when I was in Aguna Suedru. I was not very well, and I went and I approached the OPD, that's the outpatient department, to go for a card. And even the way the health personnel even talked to me and the way she did her face, I was really put off, even though I was really ill, but I was really put off. The kind of service she offered me is as if she was rather doing me a favor. Whilst in that case, it is my right rather to have access as a citizen of Ghana to good medical care, which she refused to offer me. But recently, I went for a checkup at a private facility, and the way they made me feel as if I was a queen, they gave me a better service. So I think the public service, workers, some of them, not all, but a lot of them, their attitude is something not to write home about.
I think that for the public sector, it's very obvious that lots of the workers at that particular sector are doing very well in their work. They put in all their efforts and they try to give their best to yield good results. But then on the other side, there are also people who have apathy towards government's work. They think that whether they work or not, they are still going to get paid. And then there is no particular system which gives way for them to be queried. Like, there's no strict querying on their work and their performance. So then it looks like it just goes to lie and then it's not punished. So I think that those who do that should be queried. They should be assessed based on their performance and what the thing they are supposed to do.
The private one is far, far better than the government sector because they don't do it with their possible best. They think it's not for them as compared to the private sector. If you don't, for instance, if you don't go to work early, you can get a punishment from that. But for the public sector, nobody will mind you for not doing that.
Because of bureaucracy, if you go to some of the government institutions, it's like, go here, do this. And sometimes when you go to, especially some of the banks, it's like they feel happy seeing queues. But if you go to a private one, if there's something going on wrong, they'll come and tell you this is what is going on. But at the government banks, they will not tell you anything. Just see you there standing in the queue.
When you go to most of the private industries as early as 7 a.m. in the morning, most of the workers are there on time because they know that their managers have some form of strict supervision as compared to those in the public industries. But a visit to most of the public industries reveals that as late as 10 a.m., most of the workers are not even there.
In some private institutions, even though the salary may not be good, but they offer customers the best of service. So I think we shouldn't really bore down too much on the salary. But we should also look at the general attitude to also counts, because it's attitude that is going to bring market, or is going to attract customers to a particular service.
Most public servants in Ghana don't understand the word service. All because they are not working, most of them are not working at their talent areas. So they don't feel happy giving out their best to people. They are always looking at what they will get in terms of money. And that the part of government that makes it poor is that they don't get the required money that can motivate them enough. So most people refer to Ghanaian public servants as magicians, because they receive little, but in the end they can buy whatever they want to buy in their life. So if the government is not paying them well, they will find ways of means collecting this. If you're going for some document to be signed in an office, they'll collect something to add up to their salary. So I think the government should pay them well. As now parliamentarians' salary has been increased, ministers and the president and the vice president respectively has been increased. They should do the same thing to motivate the workers to, work harder. And also, when they are recruiting people for various workplaces, they should look at talent. If you could remember the Mekong disaster, there were a lot of policemen there, but it was only one policeman who took off his shirt, went down there, brought up 14 people. Why? Because of passion. He sees himself as a lifesaver. Do you understand? So when the passion is there, the people will give up, no matter what the circumstances, being it low salary or what.
Maybe external checks, who will pay unannounced visits to the public, those institutions, and then do checks on them to find out whether or not they are doing the work, and then maybe apply the appropriate sanctions to them. I think that will help.
Proper remuneration as to motivation. will, encourage them. I mean, if you empower them, give them maybe essentials like cars, houses, housing loans, it'll empower them to do much more than what they are supposed to be doing.
I think there should be a mechanism for supervision so that they can put up the right attitudes so that we can get better services for the people of Ghana.
I think that the government must put some sanctions in place that if the workers don't come to work on time, they can be withdrawn from that particular position to serve as a deterrent to other people.
Those were our public opinions. Back to you, Cecil.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gladys. And a follow-up question, whether indeed it is the true reflection of the public sector regarding performance management. I'll throw this back to my guest in the studio, Mr. Aaron K. Vuha, is the head of the Industrial Engineering, MDPI, and Dr. William Barboatin of the Economics Department, University of Ghana. Were they true reflections of what really exists in the public sector?
Well, I think it's by and large a reflection of the Ghanaian attitude.
Okay.
I mean, I know it exists in the public service to some degree. You can also find it in the private sector when supervision is quite weak.
Yeah.
So it's quite an attitudinal kind of problem that we have. There are instances when you have to ask somebody whether he knows that he's being paid from the kind of service that he's providing you and the money that you are going to pay him. So it's an attitude that I see in the Ghanaian.
Okay. I'm happy you have stressed on that point that it's an attitude, and it clearly came out from all the various persons who spoke, the need for us to change our attitude to work. And whilst the tape was rolling, I was having some background discussions with you regarding what people do in the public service. Sometimes they forget about their job functions and they go about doing their own private thing. You sit in your office and somebody walks into your office and offers you something he or she is selling. And so with all this, you shortchanged, the system. You fail to perform. You fail to achieve your set goals because you are not using time wisely. Aaron.
First of all, I want to say that what we saw in the clip, that is what the public thinks, and they are right.
Yeah.
And secondly, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, the supervision.
Yeah.
People should know exactly what is expected of them. The supervisor should know exactly what people do. Then the supervisor should make sure they do it. There are areas where there are simple rules, like if you are the receptionist and there's a telephone call, you do not let the phone ring more than twice before you pick it. That is the standard set for you. If it rings 4 times, you have gone beyond what is expected of you.
Yeah.
And there's also, in some places, a way of getting feedback for those who come in.
Yeah.
So if I visit your reception and I don't like the way the receptionist treated me, I am authorized to report to somebody who will take the necessary action to bring the receptionist to order. So I think that things should be put in place, things should be monitored. And I think one very important thing that is needed in the public sector is there should be what I call standard procedures for doing everything.
Yeah.
If I bring something to be done, the first thing to be done should be recorded, second, third, fourth, till the end. Everybody should know it, everybody should follow it. So if I bring it, I know this is what should be done. The one supervising also knows what is to be done. And then when it's not done, they can query it. If we have these standard procedures in place, we can know whether they are doing what they should do or they are not doing it.
We were talking about measurable variables before we went off, and then the need to set up clear mechanisms for supervision. How do we go about this, and what specific mechanisms should we set for achieving these goals? Let me bring this to you.
Well, I think we started by saying that if you employ somebody, you need to have job description for that particular person, and the person knows what is expected of him. Now, putting it in the public service, I have said that we need to look at a particular kind of agency that we are looking at. So depending on the type of public service that we are talking about, then we'll be able to know the kind of measurable indicators that we are going to put in. Because you cannot use the same indicator to measure the performance of a teacher to use to measure the performance of a medical doctor or the policeman. So we need to look at it from that perspective, what the policeman is supposed to do. And based on that, you'll be able to put that one in place. What the teacher is supposed to do, and you'll be able to put that one in place. So it's very important. But there's another point that we normally lose sight of. I think the recipient of the service also has a role. And if we've been able to put sanctions in place, then we'll be able to monitor that. I will give you an example. A lady was talking about going to the hospital and the attitude of the nurse and so on and so forth. I don't think this thing can happen more often in a private hospital. I will give you an example. A private hospital, I mean, I was given a medication, something to go out there to buy. And unfortunately, what happened was the pharmacist should have just asked me to go to the doctor to tell him that that particular drug is not there. So he said, well, I can go out there and I'll be able to get it. When I went out, there were two types of medicine. So I called the doctor because I had his number, and he was very furious, very, very furious. So he asked me to stop, and then when I came back, he has to call the pharmacist and then reprimand the person. That shows that he doesn't want the patient to go and buy anything and die. Can we have this in the public health service? So it is about you, the person who is receiving it, even though you're not going to report, but at least if there is something that is going on that is not the best, if there are mechanisms for the person who is receiving that service to be able to report, and of course sanctions will be applied, then things will also be done quite well.
Okay, so the point is that as we talk about mechanisms for supervision, we should also be talking about mechanisms for evaluation, mechanisms for monitoring. How do we go about this, and what specifically should be done?
That's what he's saying. Every job should have a way of evaluating it. So when at the end of a period, maybe at the end of the month. How often should this be done? It depends on the organization.
Quarterly or?
No, you can't say one thing for everybody.
Okay.
Some organizations, you need to do it quarterly because maybe their job is very sensitive. Some you can do it annually because the variations are too big. So I cannot sit here and say do it every week, every month. But when you start, when you start and people know that their job is being evaluated, they'll sit up. Then you may even relax the supervision because you know they are doing the right thing. But like I said earlier, if the standard procedures are there and they know they are supposed to do it, they will do it because it needs the correct supervision. But like they said in the clip, and you mentioned earlier, if somebody is in a particular position and he thinks he's there because he's backed by some bigger powers, his attitude is different because it is difficult to sanction such a person. But if everybody knows that if I don't do the right thing, I'll be sanctioned, they'll do the right thing.
Okay. Now, viewers and listeners, I know you are interested in what we're talking about and you would want to contribute. If you have a line or you have access to a phone, then you can call us on 0302 7702 22. So it is 0302 7702 22. This is the line to call, and then you can also be part of this discussion we are having on this platform, Single Spine, The Issues. It's a simulcast, and so it is running live on GTV and also across the 10 regions of Ghana. And so you can join us. If you have questions to ask, you can join us. We are looking at linking pay to productivity, the next stage of the Single Spine pay policy, and also talking about performance management. We all have a role, the employee, the employer, we all have a major role to play. And this is the commitment which we are trying to highlight, the joint goal settings, reviewing communication feedback processes and all that, mentoring, coaching, providing logistics on the part of the employer and also for the employee to perform so that he or she will have no cause to complain and say that because I lack these basic logistics, that's the reason why I am not measuring up, to a particular level. So if you can call us, I've just been informed that someone is on the line. Let's go to the phone and take the call. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, thank you very much. Tell us your name and where you're joining us from.
I'm Kwabna calling from Sunyani.
From Sunyani, speak up a bit for us.
Okay, I'm Kwabna calling from Sunyani.
Okay, Kwabna, let me hear you.
Yeah, linking pay to productivity and the public sector. I think it's good we should also sometimes put when we are like this, the evaluation they did the other time, they should also put educational level, you should give way to the educational level. For instance, someone is in the public sector or civil sector or local government service with masters in economics, and the fellow is being paid. The lecturer there taught me 2 times, both in the degree and then master's level. And the fellow, they don't regard the second degree in the public service. And you are still working like a first degree holder, a master's degree holder in the public service. And you are being paid like someone who, for instance, if you're on, I've worked for 9 years, I'm on level 19, taking less than a net salary of less than 1,000 Ghana cedis. How can you be motivated to put up your best? Such a fellow is holding master and taking less than 1,000 cedis as a net salary.
Okay.
You see that you look at your other colleagues working somewhere, so you are not able to get such jobs, but you are working hard in the public sector. So when you have to do this performance management or when they are doing job evaluation and other things, they should always give weight also to the certificate.
They should consider qualification and all that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I have a lecturer here with me, and he's interested in answering that question. So I will give it to him. Doctor.
Yeah, I think he said I might have taught him at the undergraduate and graduate level. I don't know.
But earlier on when we played the clip, someone talked about money as a motivator.
Yes, I guess I know that. But I think what he's saying is some kind of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That is going through people's minds as far as single spine is concerned. Yeah. And I'm not sure whether you can have a program that we all of us will educate ourselves on the single spine. I think we should not look at qualification as the only indicator for paying a particular job. I chose my words very carefully. Paying a particular job, not paying a particular individual, but paying a particular job. You can have a first degree, and the first degree is to become, let's say, a cameraman. To become a cameraman, the minimum qualification that you need is the first degree. If you have a PhD, it does not make you superior to the person who has a first degree and doing the same kind of work, because that job requires first degree. So if the cameraman in front of me thinks that, well, I have first degree and I'm doing this, and that's what is required, but I want to improve on my education, and he goes up to hold a PhD, and then he comes back and then comes and do the same kind of work which requires just first degree, you can't say that he must be paid higher than that. So that is very important.
Hold on for me. Let me go to the phone again. We have someone else on the line. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Hi, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, I'm calling from Zabzugu. This is Abu.
You're calling from?
Zabzugu.
Oh, Zabzugu Tatali. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me hear you.
Yes, I just want to contribute to the program.
Go ahead, Abu.
It's good that productivity at the public sector is very low. But sometimes we also need some kind of encouragement. Because if you look at the public sector, there's also some sectors whereby people are doing some work which they are not supposed to. That is extra work. Because that work is meant for people to do, but because they are still in the system, other people are being taken over to do. For example, like the nurses. Because if it comes, because when they are talking about sometimes the nurses, the way they approach patients for patient-related is not the same. But sometimes it may also be due to the pressure on the work, because assuming that if a nurse is supposed to be in the ward just to do proper nursing, but because there are few doctors in the system, the night must be taken from the role of the doctor, like taking of giving injections for partners IV line. So sometimes there's a need for us, because we are human beings, due to the pressure, we can do something, because there's also need for us to give some kind of encouragement. But not always to the condemning at the private sector the productivity is low. Sometimes it's not the best.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abu. You want to make a follow-up? I stopped you abruptly.
Yes, I didn't hear him quite well, but I was talking about people working, and for that matter, because they have masters and so on and so forth. I think we normally have to look at the job that we are doing. And anytime I teach job evaluation and I use single spine as a case study in my class, I always use a simple example that if you want to sweep on the street, that kind of work does not require masters. So if you have masters and you go and do that kind of work, it does not mean that we have to pay you something which is equivalent to somebody who has a masters and working at GBC. So the single spine pays work that you are doing, but not the individual. And it's something that we need to look at. And linking it up with productivity, the job that you are supposed to do must have some kind of requirement. And this is what you are supposed to do to be able to make that work, to be able to have the work done. And that individual will then do that kind of work and be paid accordingly.
Okay, all right. We will stress on the need for people to appreciate what we're doing if we talk about productivity and what it means. And so that if we attempt to link pay to productivity, and then they should understand why we are seated here and discussing this issue. So I will throw this one to you. Before I do that, I've just been informed that there's someone on the line. Let's go to the phone again. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, I'm Bright calling from Accra.
Bright from Accra. Bright, let's hear you.
I think that to link public service issues to productivity, there is a need for equity. For instance, if you take the health sector, for instance, you hear that a lot of people are health sector salaries are good. But I'm telling you that it is only the clinicals who are enjoying it. When you take into account the administrators and the paramedics, those who are not clinical staff, I'm telling you, even the nurse who have ordinary diploma salary is more than that of a senior administrator or a senior accountant salary.
That's the problem.
So it's not everything. And even most of the facilities like this vehicle, Weaver, it's only the clinicals who are taking it. They are not giving it to the paramedics. So I think there should be equity. You see that although we are all in the same sector, there are variances. And if these things are not treated, maybe some of us, we are just praying that we should get better educational qualification and look for other places to work where there is equity. Not necessarily the salary, but where the treatments are equal and everything is equal. I think this is better, so we should look at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Bright from Accra. I mean, another angle altogether has been introduced, and it's got to do with equity. The fact that he is working in the same sector with others, he's probably doing more. You try to, address that earlier on, but let me allow Aaron to stress on that. MDPI, I think you have done a lot of
talk on productivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that
okay, let me explain.
Our viewers and listeners will appreciate what we're trying to do.
I want to explain something about productivity.
Yeah.
Many people confuse productivity with production.
Yes.
Now, if you are increasing production, it means you are turning out more of your products, whether goods or services.
Services. Yeah.
But if you are increasing productivity, you are becoming more efficient in the work you are doing. Let's say we are running an hour discussion program.
Yeah.
That is the output of this program. To increase productivity of this program, we'll look at the resources that go into the program. If you can reduce it, then productivity has gone up. And looking at the public...
So resources in terms of what?
Any resources that you use in the production.
Okay.
We use man-hours, we use materials, we use machines
and
all the resources we use in the work.
If you can cut down on that and efficiently perform,
that is it.
Then we have increased.
Or you can maintain the resources
or
and
maintain
increase
the
production.
and increase.
Yeah.
So,
but let's look at reducing the resources first.
Okay. Because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this a little because in the public sector, simple little things that need to be done to cut down on the wastage is not done. You have a leaky tap here, you have an overflowing water closet there, and nobody thinks it's important. At the end of the year, the amount of water wasted is huge. You have people who have air conditioners on in their offices and they are not there. The lights are on and they are not there. It's wasting resources.
They go home and sometimes they even leave
Yes.
all these
And
gadgets.
nobody
on.
really captures the quantity that is wasted. There are, excuse me to say, wasted phone calls.
Yeah.
You know, we are Ghanaians.
Yeah.
And let's say I make a call.
Yeah.
I want to tell you just a simple thing. Can I see you when you close from work?
Yeah.
But when I call, I'll greet you. I ask you, hey, I hear you went to the hometown last week and it was the only
Very
fine.
unnecessary conversation
Yes.
that
The
will
real
not
thing
add
I
up
want to
to.
say will take 2 minutes, but I may have talked for 15
Okay,
minutes.
hold on. Let me go to the phone. I will come back to you. Hello.
Good evening.
Hello. Yes, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is Sadiq Samale.
Oh, Sadiq, my good friend.
Yes, I have a big problem because in the sense that in the year, you know, we have just like other departments. The higher your qualification, the higher your productivity. The longer you are in the service, the more productive you will be because you know the key issues than the new entrant. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
You can work faster than the new entrant, even though you all have the same qualification. So but when you come to the single span, we have realized that all GES staff who work within the headquarters, regional education offices, and district education office, their work has been classified as non-core duties. And those in the schools, heading schools, they are core duty staff. And then we know what we do here. You will teach in the classroom up to the level that when you are appointed, before you are brought to the district office, you are called for interview, and then you are appointed with out of your performance, higher performance. And those who are in the schools, those in the schools who remain as head, they are, because they couldn't perform well, they are still head. And now they are now saying that they collect more salary than us. So, and as of now, when I was heading a secondary school, I was single span level, level 19, low, 19, 20 high. And today, because I'm in the district education office, I'm now 19 high. So what crime, after the experience you have gained, and you have taught, and even though you have the same qualification, but you were judged the best out of that, and you were appointed. So are all secure supervisors who were heading primary schools, and they passed and they appointed as secure supervisors. And because of their appointment as secure supervisors, they are now collecting lower than their colleagues who couldn't pass, and they are now in the district offices.
Okay.
These are the twin job problem we are facing.
All right, okay.
And we want clarification why it is so.
All right. Thank you very much, my good friend Sadiq, all the way from Tamale. I was not surprised these issues are coming up because I've had the opportunity of talking to Sadiq a number of times on radio every morning when he calls to complain about some of the worries and concerns within the educational sector. And he is a teacher, and so he's raised certain genuine concerns. But a lot of work will have to go into this to let people understand, you know, some of these issues, these very basic issues. Let me pick one more call and then I'll come back to my guest in the studio. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
I'm Isaac, calling from Sinyani, sir.
Isaac from Sinyani. Okay, Isaac.
Yes, sir. I want to contribute to the program.
Okay, Isaac, go ahead. We're listening to you.
My problem about the public sector is especially the banks. Could you imagine that my wife is a teacher? She could spend a working day, and go to the bank. Even that day, she will not even get her money. And wait for another day before she goes. So it's a problem you're all facing. Sometimes you go to commercial bank and you say, long queue. One person, two people serving all these people. I don't know if the workers are even happy to see people in very long queue serving them. So if you're a teacher, you want to go for your pay tomorrow or a working day, you have to wait and go there in the morning by leaving the classroom. So how then do we achieve a good result at our working places?
Yeah.
So my suggestion is, if the government can do it better, they should give Saturdays and Sundays even to bankers to work so that government workers can go.
Yeah, but the point is that most of the banks are now working on Saturdays, and I'm told some of them are even planning to move into Sundays. So
and I hope that one will also help us.
Okay,
because
all
my
right.
wife suspends 2 days and go to her bank because of her money.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Isaac. A very important point there you have raised. Let me come back to you now.
Yeah, I think from the issues that are coming up from the callers shows that before we move to the productivity issue, we need to educate ourselves about the single spine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the foundation will be very weak, and we are going to build the superstructure, and it's going to.
We have done a lot of education, though, but I still understand that
Yes,
education
because
should continue.
Yes, we need to do that.
Yeah.
It often comes up that equity, and when you say equity, you can define equity from the perspective that will suit you, and I think we need to put that in perspective. I think I have said here that the single spine, as I understand it, when it started, is supposed to pay the job. I think if we don't look at it from that perspective, we are going to have a problem. Now, if I use, let's say, the health service as an example, if you have a nurse, the nurse has a particular job that he or she is doing. The nurse's job cannot be compared to me as a teacher. They are two different things. If you have an accountant who is in a health service, the kind of work that accountant will do will not be so much different from accountant who is working in education service. So when you are talking about equity, are you talking about equity vertically or are you talking about equity horizontally? So if you say that we are all working in, let's say, the health service, and therefore what the medical doctor is getting, I am, let's say, a messenger in the health service, I should also get something quite close to that. Then that messenger in the health service, how would you compare that messenger to, let's say, a messenger in, let's say, education service, or a messenger in, let's say, the civil service? I think we need to educate ourselves very well to be able to know what the single spine stands for. Otherwise, we are going to have a lot of problem, even when we start mapping up the issue of productivity.
Okay. Now, what timelines are we looking at? If we will have to roll out this, Aaron?
I think you still have to go back to him.
Oh, okay.
Because the program, I'm not.
You have not been part.
No, exactly.
Okay, all right. So,
well, I am not part of Fair Wages, but I mean, looking at the work that I do as a teacher in labor economics, I always follow the work that I do. I'm sure they are almost through with the migration, and after the migration, I suspect that they are going to evaluate what they have done so far, and then try to block all the loopholes. There are so many concerns that are coming up. The concern from the gentleman in Tamale is something that must be looked at in the education system. How are those things done? For instance, everybody considers promotion to go with remuneration, and going with remuneration means promotion also goes with increased responsibility, because the responsibility would then have to tie in with the wage that you are going to get. So I think this is one concern that I expect the Fair Wages Salary Commission to look at and block all those holes, all those rough edges. We smoothen it before perhaps they start rolling out the program for the productivity.
So the point is that performance expectations should always go with results, actions, and behavior, and the onus should lie on the employer and then the employee. That is it. I would have to thank you for the time you have given us on today's platform. It's been very educative and informative, and I would say thanks to you, Mr. Aaron K. Vuha, Head of Industrial Engineering, MDPI, and Dr. Ba Boating of Economics Department, University of Ghana, Legon. And to you, our viewers and our listeners, I say that before you start some work, always ask yourself 3 questions. Why am I doing it? And what the results might be, and whether I am going to be successful. It is only when you think deeply and then you find satisfactory answers to these, and then you go ahead with a kind of work. Thank you so much. My name is Cecil Niobodaiwin. To make a date with us again, same time next week, Saturday, on Single Spine, The Issues. Thank you. Keep watching GTV and keep listening to us on radio.